G'day, I'm Phil. In my last video, I talked about how I gradually gained weight over the years and how I ended up where I am today. But there's another part of the story that I haven't really talked about yet. A period of about 2 years that changed the direction of my life completely. If you've watched my first video, you'll know that before I worked in security, I was a butcher. I'd been a butcher for about 12 years. And at the time I got injured, life was looking pretty good. In fact, I'd only been married to my wife for about 3 weeks. We were looking forward to the future, building a life together and enjoying being newly married. Then it all changed. I remember going to bed one night after feeling a bit sore at work. That wasn't unusual. Physical work leaves you sore from time to time, and I assumed I'd wake up feeling better. Instead, I woke up the next morning in agony. I couldn't move my arm properly, and my first thought wasn't, I wonder what's wrong. My first thought was, how am I going to get through work on Monday? It was a Saturday morning, and I genuinely thought I'd be back at work in a few weeks. I had no idea it would become 2 years. The first few weeks were a blur of doctor's appointments, medical tests, and trying to figure out exactly what was wrong. When I wasn't attending appointments, I was mostly sitting at home on the couch, watching TV and trying to get a bit of sleep, because I wasn't sleeping very well at night. The pain made it really hard to do much of anything. More than anything else though, it was the uncertainty that got to me. At that point, I still thought it was a temporary setback. I thought I'd recover, go back to work and get on with my life. But that isn't how things unfolded. Because I woke up at home, rather than feeling the injury happen at work, there was initially some uncertainty about whether it would be accepted as a workplace injury. My store manager wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. So I spoke to a lawyer and started working through the proper process. There were forms to get through, medical evidence to gather, and appointments to attend. It took about 5 weeks before the claim was accepted. Thankfully, once it was accepted, my sick leave and annual leave were returned to me, and the financial side became more stable. But those 5 weeks felt very long at the time. I was worried. I was worried about money. I was worried about my future. I was worried about whether I'd be able to support my family. And honestly, I felt pretty powerless. Then things got harder. While I was still going through the WorkCover process, all of the butchers in the company were made redundant. Suddenly I wasn't just injured. I didn't have a job to go back to. I remember being given the option of taking a redundancy payout or being redeployed somewhere else within the company. Given my situation, redeployment seemed like the sensible option. After 12 years with the company, the position they offered me was 15 hours a week stocking shelves. I remember feeling very angry. I'd given 12 years of my life to that company, and the best they could offer me was 15 hours a week stocking shelves. At that point, I was frustrated, disappointed, and honestly quite bitter. I was angry at my employer. I was frustrated with my circumstances. I spent a fair bit of time feeling sorry for myself. There were definitely days where I sat on the couch and thought, what's the point? Looking back now, that was probably my lowest point. Not the physical pain, not the medical appointments, but the feeling that my future had been taken away from me. My wife and I had only been married for a short time, but to her credit, she was incredibly supportive throughout the whole process. But that doesn't mean it was easy. We were both under pressure. She was worried about the future. She was worried about finances. She didn't want to become the sole breadwinner. And I was frustrated that I couldn't simply get up and fix the problem. It went to the very heart of my identity that I was going to struggle with supporting my family. Because that's what a man does, right? There were definitely times when voices got raised. At the time, I probably would have called them arguments. My wife would probably call them discussions. The truth was we were both scared, just in different ways. One thing that kept us going, though, through all of it, was our faith. Now, having faith doesn't mean you don't go through hard times. In some ways, it's the opposite. Everybody goes through hard times. The difference is that faith gives you something to hold on to when those hard times come. For me, that meant prayer. It meant going to church. It meant being around other believers who encouraged us and reminded us that we weren't facing things alone. I don't remember ever consciously questioning God during that time, but I do remember leaning on him a lot. Eventually something began to change. Not overnight, gradually. I realised I couldn't spend the rest of my life sitting on the couch feeling sorry for myself. I knew there was a possibility I could remain on compensation payments long term. But the more I thought about it, the less appealing that future became. There was no growth in that. There was no challenge in that. There was no improvement in that. I would simply be surviving, and I wanted more than that. Around that time, I started studying music production online. It didn't end up becoming a career, but it gave me something positive to focus on. WorkCover also had me doing small work placements to help rebuild my capacity. Some of the work wasn't particularly exciting, but it helped me to start looking forward again instead of looking backwards. Then I started hearing about people from church who worked in security. The more I learned about it, the more interested I became. There always seemed to be work available. There were opportunities to grow, and more importantly, it relied more on observation and decision making than physical strength. That suited my circumstances. WorkCover ended up paying for my security course and my first year's security license. Once I completed the training, all I had to do was to wait for the license to come through and receive clearance to return to work. I still remember how good it felt to go back to work. My first security job wasn't perfect. It wasn't exactly where I wanted to end up, but it represented something much bigger. It represented a future. It represented independence. It represented moving forward. Looking back now, those 2 years taught me a lot. They taught me endurance. They taught me patience. They taught me to hold on to my faith when life doesn't go according to plan. Most importantly, they taught me that difficult seasons don't last forever. Would I choose to go through those 2 years again? No way. But would I remove them from my life? Also no. Because without those 2 years, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I genuinely believe they made me stronger. Not because suffering is good, but because I learned things during that period that I couldn't have learned any other way. And maybe that's one of the reasons I started this channel. Because if somebody watching this is going through their own difficult time right now, I want you to know that it won't last forever. Keep moving forward. Keep growing. Keep believing that better days are ahead. Thanks for watching. If you've ever been through a season that completely changed the direction of your life, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Take care, and one step at a time.